Welcome to the Sack of Stats podcast. I'm Pam Maldonado, joined by my girl, KellyInVegas, bringing you all the analytics behind the NFL contest bets. Kelly, my girl, can we get a participation trophy? Because here we go. Here it is. It's my bodybuilding trophy. But here we go. We went 5-0 for the first time as a team. I know that it's like such a small feat for some, but I feel accomplished. I feel like finally something clicked for us.
I'm not going to lie. I was shitting myself on Sunday night when you sent that tweet out, and I was like, did Pam just mush us? Is this a bad pick? Like all of the things in my brain were like replaying over, and then it was fine. And I didn't have anything to worry about. The handicap worked out. I think we had 10.5, so we won by the hook. I will take that because I've lost plenty by the hook over the years.
Absolutely. We're 24, 15, and 1 overall. Both of our best bets went right on track last week. So they're both 5-3. Losing week, don't lose your head. Winning week, don't lose your head. You know, it was a great to have that 5-0 under our belt. We've been chasing it for 2 seasons now as a team. So it's done and dusted, but it's a new week and anything can happen. But I will say that typically, so what I have done for 2 seasons straight, because I have so much confidence in what you do, I have so much confidence in what I do. I parlay our 5 every week. And I don't put a lot on it. I don't put a lot on it. This is like chump change, you know, it's just fun because I have that much belief. I didn't do that last week because we were 2-8 in the last 2.
Oh, of course you didn't. So literally, I had that happen last year with my parlay. The one weekend my buddy didn't bet it. It hit. But thankfully it hit again the next week, but it was really funny because I go, you should just never bet it again. I blame you. So now, Pam, you're never allowed to bet our 5 picks again. Sorry. Rules are rules.
That's the only way we're going to go 5-0 is if I have no belief in what we're doing whatsoever. But go figure, we had 3 favorites and it was us saying we never bet chalk, and here we are going with chalk, and it actually ended up came to fruition that those were the easiest bets, and the 2 hardest ones were our best bets, which were the 2 dogs. So
yeah, we had to sweat our faces off, both of us.
But what do you think about this week's card? Here we are in week 9 of the NFL. We're almost at the halfway point. So what do you think?
A little bit of housekeeping. One, apologies if there's any dings, weird things. I'm using my buddy Chris's setup right now. I'm Boston hosting a party down at Stats and Southie tomorrow with him. It's going to be awesome. So if you guys are in Boston, please come hang out, watch some college football. Speaking of college football, I wore this just for Pam. We had to wear the horns down. Go Cats. Oh, and what I was getting ready to say was if there's any issues tech-wise, I know I've had issues in the past. Do not be mad at me. I promise it's not my fault. I'm just sharing a setup for today. But as far as this week's NFL slate goes, I bet 3 NFL games, Pam, on Tuesday. Up until this morning, guess how many college games I had bet? Just 2. So this is like a weird week. Normally, I want to get to the window early and often. And if I have to, I can play off of a game before I give it out to the world on Twitter or through video or through other shows. I was really struggling this week with college football. So NFL, just bang, 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 all 3 that I sent you. Feel good about it. Didn't love anything, but bet all 3 the same, just for 1 unit. By the way, that's how I bet NFL. I bet 3, 4, 5 units on college football because it's just such a different animal. We've spoken about this before, how the lines are super tight. But I do really like all 3 of these plays about the same. Of course, you made me pick one best bet, so I'll start off with that whenever you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a reminder of what it is that we are doing. We are making 5 against the spread contest picks each week in the NFL. Kelly's best bet is automatically in. My best bet is automatically in, regardless of whether we agree on it or not. Last week, the Packers, they scared me, came through. So I don't care. I have no arguments. You trust it. I love it. You trust me. We love it. In. And then together we come up with the 3, which is not always an easy feat. We tend to not agree, which has both worked out for us and has been a bit of a difficult thing too. So it's a hit or miss. But Kelly's best bet this week, what do you got?
Yeah. So basically what I've done the last few weeks, which it worked out. I should say it's 1-1. The Broncos didn't work out for us, even though they had multiple opportunities. last week I said, all right, I got to pick between two games. One, you agreed with me on. So I was like, let me just go the opposite direction. And I went with the Packers, knowing that I couldn't get you on board. So that's kind of what I did this week. I didn't think that you would like this pick. And we've spoken about it several times on the show in regards to some of these lines and how I feel about basically how I decipher what's going to be a best bet, right? And I went with the Bears here, and it's gross, but these 5.5 lines have been paying dividends. So it was between the Bears and the Colts for my best bet. You even texted me this morning. You're like, is Colts your best bet? It could have been, and I am actually going to be at that game, as I mentioned, just randomly. I was not planning on betting the Colts in Gillette Stadium. It already went so well for me betting the Pats in Green Bay. People were looking at me a little strange. It's going to happen again this Sunday. But this is a Chicago defense plus the points at home. I know that they've been a little vulnerable as far as the running game goes, but this secondary is really good against the pass. And I do think that means it's going to match up really well against Waddle and Hill, which is really bad for my fantasy team because Tyreek Hill has been simultaneously dragging my entire team across the finish line every single week. So maybe they'll just double team Waddle and I'll still get a Hill TD here and there, but the Bears can keep it close. This offense has really started to open up since they did play against the Pats. They've scored 29 points in consecutive games after their first 6 where they just looked so bad once again. I'm actually kind of buying wrong quarterback. That was last night's quarterback. I almost said Jalen Hurts. Good grief, Pam. You got to love the travel, kills my brain. But yes, I am buying Justin Fields. I do think that he is improved, and I'm excited to see what this Bears defense can do matching up against Miami. Catching 5 or 5.5 at home was the most intriguing. As I mentioned, those have just been money makers this year. It's like every time there's been a team plus 5.5, they've either covered or won outright. So I looked at both of them this week since they were both very appetizing.
Interesting. Well, I am a Bears fan, as you can see. Where is it?
You are?
Yeah, right there. I am.
I thought you were supposed to be a Jags fan.
Do you see it? Jags and Bears above
Oh my
head.
God, there it is. There it is. I've never noticed that before. I am not a Baylor fan for what it's worth. I just want everybody to know that is not
You're
mine.
not at your house. This is my office space, and yes, I am a Jags fan. Oh, there we go. And a Bears fan. There we go. So yes, and I was super excited to see Justin Fields finally come to be the quarterback that we saw him in college. That they're finally opening up the playbook. I'm in agreement with you. You do have one thing that's going in your favor is that potentially weather could be an issue. It is Chicago. It's always windy, and it could potentially right now it's showing that there's like 25-mile-per-hour gusts. Well, if you are a pass-only team in the Dolphins, how are you going to get that done? And yes, Bears, Miami defense can't stop a nosebleed. Bears offense, it's coming to life. Quarterback Justin Fields, 5 straight games. This is such like a weird metric, but it's 5 straight games throwing of over 20 attempts. And that doesn't sound like a lot because it's not. But for him, it is because prior to that, he was throwing 11, he was throwing 15. He hadn't reached the 20 attempt mark, and now he has 5 straight games, which means that yes, they are opening up that playbook, and it's because he can run on the ground, and because of that, it opens up the passing game. So I definitely don't disagree with it. I'm in agreement with you. I initially thought that I liked the over. The weather is going to be the concern. If it is windy, who does that benefit? The ground game. So Bears, I'm in agreement with you on that one. For my best bet, it is one that you only sent me a list of 3. You mentioned you only bet 3 games. All 3 of them you and I were in agreement with. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Ooh.
We will end up seeing my best bet is going to be the Saints plus 2.5 at home to the Ravens. And this purely comes down to the Ravens' inept defense in the 4th quarter. The Saints, 30% of the red zone plays for the Saints have resulted in a touchdown. That is the 2nd best in the league. And it's because you have, players like Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, good players, strong players, especially inside the red zone. And because they're so efficient inside the red zone, the Saints are averaging 14. Went blank there for a minute. It's the 2nd time I've done that today where it's completely been blank. The Saints are averaging 14 points scored in the 4th quarter. For whatever reason, they can't figure it out in the first 3, but in the 4th, they absolutely go off. That is the 2nd best in the league. averaging 14 points in the fourth quarter. The Ravens defense, overall, Baltimore's defense is allowing the most red zone plays in the league and then allowing nearly 2/3 of those trips to be converted into touchdowns. They're not giving up field goals. They're giving up a full 6. That is huge in a game spread of so small, +2.5. But what's the MO for Lamar Jackson? We have seen that they held on to these leads. They have held a lead in every single NFL game this season, and they
Yes,
have
they
either
have.
lost outright or they are barely winning by like 2, 3, 4 points. Then they hit a wall. And the problem for the Ravens is that they are the second worst. I'm talking about the Saints offense being number 2 best scoring offense in the fourth quarter. The Ravens are the second worst in allowing points inside the fourth quarter. So it's a tale of two teams. You have the Saints offense that rallies in the fourth quarter. You have the Ravens who lose focus. I was trying to figure out what is the problem with this Ravens team? Why are they giving up these leads? I really wanted to figure it out. Is it what A factor, B factor? What is it? And then looking at the box scores, trying to figure it out. Lamar Jackson potentially is trying to do too much. Maybe it's in his head
Ooh.
that he knows that they give up these leads and he's trying to just like force situations where none exist, because there have been 6 turnovers in the fourth quarter of games this year, and 2 of those games they lost outright because of turnovers that led to points.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's like an offensive thing where Lamar Jackson is trying to do too much and he's tired, so okay, fumble, or the defense is now gassed because its offense can't stay on the field long enough from these potential turnovers. Whatever the reason, there's a fourth quarter turnover problem. And now you're going up against the Saints' best fourth quarter offense, second best fourth quarter offense. So we may sweat this out up until the clock hits 0, but it's the NFL. Expect to do that every week anyway.
I've been really watching the market a lot lately, Pam, and I think it kind of dictates. Last night, if you watched Thursday Night Football, you could have middled it depending on when you bet the game.
Yep.
And that's because we saw sharp people take the 11.5 very, very early. And guess what? The closing number was 14, landed in between the two. This is one of those games I hope that doesn't happen to us. Opened 3.5, and I bet it at 3, and poof, it was 2.5 like that. So that is my only concern when it crosses over that big key number of 3. I love the Saints on Monday night. They are such a different team in the dome than they are on the road. We've known that forever. Doesn't matter who's under center for quarterback, because I'm betting on that defense. That typical old adage, KIV loves a better defense plus the points. Of course I do. And it's no different here with the Saints. I think they're also an excellent teaser option here at 2.5 up to 8.5. So I did play them there as well.
I do also have the Saints in teaser, and I put that in my teaser article for Yahoo. So then those are going to be our 2 best bets that are automatically locked in. We have the Bears +5 against the Dolphins, and we have the Saints at home to the Ravens. Now the rest of the card, kind of a sinker. I'm like you. I'm like, well, I didn't really love a lot of things this week, and it's because there's injuries, there's weather concerns, there's just like whatever the case. One that you and I are in agreement with, but I am a little bit worried, and we'll talk about it why, is the Colts +5.5 to the Patriots. For me, Sam Mellinger, that's my Longhorn, my fellow Longhorn. I know him well. We faded him last week. Kind of backing him this week, though, because he looked pretty good last week. 17-16 loss to Washington, but he did play better than I expected for his first start against a really good pass rush. He was sacked twice, 0 touchdowns, found his way to scramble. That was really good. 74% completion. He'll have to do that exact same thing against the Patriots pass rush. My concern is that running back Jonathan Taylor, he is out for this game. It was just announced a few minutes ago.
Was it? I missed that.
Instead, you have running back Deion Jackson, who is in. But then to that argument, doesn't even really matter. It seems like Jonathan Taylor just hasn't been as productive this season because the offensive line is not holding up to be very strong. This does not look like, to me, this looks like a bit of a replay of last week's Patriots-Jets game. Jets, good defense. Colts, good defense. Jets quarterback Zach Wilson, he threw 3 interceptions in that game, and yet the Jets still only lost by 5 points. The Patriots offense is maybe a little bit off here. 1 score inside 3 red zone trips last week. So this is more of a play against the Patriots rather than a play on the Colts. I'm not as strong. Maybe you have something that can, like, what do you think?
I don't have much, Pam. I can tell you this. With Belichick taking a stand, which we know he will bench him. We saw it mid-game versus the Bears with him taking a stand saying Mac Jones is going to be the starter, even though all of the fan base wants Bailey Zappi. If Mac Jones screws up one time, I think things could kind of steamroll, right? Just 3 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions on the season. I know everybody thought he was going to be the second coming of Tom Brady, but that doesn't appear to be the case. Maybe he's not fully healthy.
It could be injury. He was
I was going to say
maybe he's not 100% healed.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Maybe it's because he's not fully healthy, so I'm not writing him off just yet. But the Patriots' keys to victory have always been get out to that, punch him in the mouth right out of the gate, right? We've seen it, and they've had to do that. I don't know if you can punch this Colts defense in the mouth right out of the gate.
Right.
I really don't know if you can. I wish Jonathan Taylor was playing because that's kind of a weakness of the Patriots. And I do think that's why they got the best of the Jets without Breece Hall last week. You got to be able to run the ball against the Pats. They obviously just got rid of N'Keem Hines. Doesn't help things since Jonathan Taylor's been hurt. But you're right. JT hasn't been some prolific running back this year because that offensive line doesn't give anyone any time. And that's why we saw Matt Ryan get clobbered. I'm with you here. I like the line at 5. Is that what it is in the contest, or are they giving us a short number? Okay, perfect. At 5.5, I'm totally okay with it. I play a lot of stale numbers, as we've talked about in several other pools that I have that the lines come out on Monday. So some of them were even at 4.5, and I was going, oh, I don't love it. Obviously, we know 5 is a dead number in the NFL for the most part, even though it is starting to come around a little bit more since they moved the PAT back. But yeah, 5.5 here. This looks like not a sleepwalk game necessarily, because we don't see that happen all that often with the Patriots, but coming off, that Bears loss, going in, beating up on the Jets. I just don't see this team getting like super excited to play the Colts on Sunday at 1:00.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a very low total of 39. That's the lowest on the board of this week. So that points are going to be coming at a premium. So 3-point game and a 5-point spread. I mean, maybe someone gets an extra an extra 2-point conversion, and it's a 4-point game. I mean, that's what we're kind of hoping for with the point total being 39. Do you want to pencil this in, or do you want to lock it in?
I think we lock it in, especially at 5. It makes sense to me especially because, like you said, there's not a lot that you love this week. And if we both are in agreement, I think we just go ahead and take it.
Fire at will. Got it then. Okay. Well, then another option. So then this is probably going to be easier than I thought. So let's just go run through some options, since there's a lot that you sent me 3 and we're in agreement on all 3.
Okay, and we've got all 3. My job here is done. Have a good rest of the show, Pam.
I know, we're done. We'll just flip a coin for the rest. Okay, well, let me give you a potential option then. Jags plus 1.5 at home to the Raiders. Derek Carr and the Raiders shut out to Andy Dalton and Dennis Allen last week in New Orleans. The Saints, they do have a good defense, but I mean, it's Carr who has running back Josh Jacobs. You have wide receiver Devontae Adams, and you were able to have just one red zone trip in a 60-minute game. Just one. Carr has produced just 4 touchdowns combined in the last 4 games. Something is not clicking with this offense. I don't know what it is, because I'll be honest, I haven't watched a lot of Raiders games. I think I saw them 2-3 times of the 8-game season. And then I'm like, oh, bored. So then I move on. So I'm trying to figure out what it is that's not working with this offense. Is it the offensive coordinator? Is it Derek Carr? Time to move on. He's supposed to be best friends with Devontae Adams. Where's that connection? We haven't seen it come to fruition. And I know that the Jags, it is scary because but one, you play them as a dog, never as a favorite. They're at home. Great. They've been less than stellar. But Jacksonville has faced a tougher slate of opponents. They have losses to a really good Broncos defense, a really good Brian Dable coached Giants team, a Colts defense who we're just talking about, and arguably the best team in the NFL, the Eagles. That's a pretty tough stretch of opponents. They should have beat the Texans. They had beat them in every statistical category, didn't pull out the win there in the end. But maybe this is a spot for the Jags offense to get right. The Raiders are allowing 36 yards per drive. That is 30th in the league. The Raiders force the fewest sacks and turnovers in the league and are 29th in the NFL in allowing touchdowns inside the red zone for 60% completion, which is an area that Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback for Jacksonville, has struggled. What do you think?
Yeah, I lean Jags here. I agree with everything you said in terms of the Raiders. I watched a lot of that game. I did have the Saints last week in a teaser. And why did I watch the game? Because Justin Herbert was on a bye week. So guess who was on my fantasy team and got 3 points? Like I said, thank you for Tyreek Hill, because otherwise I would have had a conniption over Derek Carr. He was so bad on multiple levels. You're asking whether it's him, whether it's the offensive coordinator. I do another show with our friend Megan, and Megan literally thinks it's Josh McDaniels. Then I thought back to my days in Denver when I actually wanted him to be my head coach, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't know what the pinpoint problem is, but there is something not clicking with this Raiders defense. I was going to point out the travel schedule as well, but it doesn't look like, it looks like they ended up staying in Florida this week instead of going back to Vegas. So maybe that's an advantage for the Raiders instead of back-to-back road games, if you will, at least having a home base in Florida before the Jacksonville game.
Yeah.
This is just a team that is so frustrating. Jags, on the other hand, should be able to torch that Vegas defense. This Vegas defense, Pam, let's call it 2014 or 2015. I was doing a Raiders show when we knew the Raiders were coming to Las Vegas. So we started at the Las Vegas Review Journal doing a Raiders show. And I remember it was like week 7 or week 8. And I was like, this team does not even have a freaking turnover. And that's how bad this defense is. Well, you know how bad this defense still is? They only have 4 turnovers on the season. They're not a good defense.
Yeah.
I do have my concerns with the Jags offense and Trevor Lawrence. We know that at times they can get clicking. I would circle this as a maybe. There's a few other games that I did have them on my long list to start the week. And I ultimately just said, I don't love this game. So it doesn't need to make my card.
Let's see how about this. The Rams +3 to the Bucks. The Rams offensive line, Stafford, still trash. Like, yikes. Like, it's terrible. I know. But it's 2 bad teams right now. The Bucks have, and it seems like all of a sudden, like, oh, everyone is firing on the Bucks because this is a great spot. Is it really? Because the Bucks have scored 22 points or less in all games but 1. The Bucks have the lowest rate of touchdowns scored. The Bucks have converted only 5 of 50 third downs needing 7 yards or more. Why are you even in a third down option where you need 7 yards or more? Because your early down offense is not doing anything. That's last in the league. At least the Rams are top 5 in defense. Brady against a worse defense. In 8 games played, they threw more than 1 touchdown pass once. Last year, he led the league in touchdowns, and now he's only going through 7 of 8 games having just 1 touchdown pass. He was sacked 3 times against the Ravens. He had 5.9 passing average against the Panthers. These are worse defenses, and he's still struggling against those. And now you're going up against a good Rams defense. I know the offense is struggling because it's Matthew Stafford behind a bad offensive line, but it is still a good defense. Any opinion on the Rams Bucks?
Bam. I want no part of the Bucks now or until I see something different from them. I've been to 3 Bucks games this year, and all 3 have been just frustrating. Like, I'm not a Bucks fan. I'm not a Brady fan. I could care less. Something is inherently wrong. We could argue that maybe that there was some drama off the field, right? And maybe that's skewing Tom. Maybe we could argue that he's 45 years old, because when I got off the plane this morning, I'm not 45. I sure felt like I got my ass kicked. The bottom line is, ever since
it
my
might
best
have been those 2 vodkas that you had on the flight. Those 2 seltzers.
Yeah, well, I'm having one now because I didn't want to have one at 4:30 this morning. But full disclosure, Tom Brady, Tampa Bay, this defense is not the same defense that won the Super Bowl. They're banged up. Everybody keeps telling me that this is Tom's get right game. This is a revenge spot for last year in the NFC Championship game or whatever. Maybe it was was it before the championship game? Sorry, the championship was San Fran Rams. Either way, I don't trust this team, especially laying points. They're 0-6 against the spread in their last 6 games, even though they were favored in every single one of those. This rush defense has just been like obliterated. I was at the game last Thursday night, and one could give them that as a bonus. Like, okay, they've had a little extra rest. I don't love it at 3 being a huge key number. I could see the Rams being the play at 2.5.
The other contest
Yeah.
was 2.5. This one is 3.
And I put the Rams in a teaser. One of the very first things when that line was 2.5. And now that it's 3, I don't love it because, again, sharp guys think that Tom Brady's due for a bounce back. What else do I have here? Cooper Kupp. That's right. I was watching the NFL show before we started. I knew there was one more thing I wanted to say. Sounds like Cooper Kupp is okay and going to be a go. The main reason why I was watching that is because I need him. And when you draft 0 quarterback, running back leagues, and that doesn't mean 0. That means you just don't care which running back you have. You just keep swapping them out throughout the season because they get hurt so often. I've got Cooper Kupp on the other side of Tyreek Hill, so I was very apprehensive about this game, but he's going to be a go. He had a limited practice yesterday. It says he's going to have a full practice today. Yeah. And that right there is a big move. I mean, he is literally Stafford's security blanket. When he can't get out of a play, Cooper Kupp is there and he knows it. So I do lean towards the Rams in this one. Again, I wish that I had a bigger opinion on anything else.
Okay, well then let's go through. Packers -3.5 at the Lions. Aaron Rodgers is still a good quarterback. You were on him last week. I actually was really impressed. I thought that they were going to get just steamrolled, and that was not the case. They fought in this, and I know that we always talk about how Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that wide receiver playmaker without Devontae Adams. He's finding ways he's figuring it out. I believe that Aaron Rodgers is starting to figure it out. I had my own little Tony Romo moment in last week's game where Tony Romo last year, he saw the Bucs and he's like, "Oh, look, the Bucs, they figured something out." And then they all of a sudden just crushed. I feel like I saw a little bit of that with Aaron Rodgers last week with the Packers because on the sideline, he had his little wide receiver buddies who apparently he didn't trust. That was all the rage last week, that he doesn't trust his wide receivers and that's why he's holding onto the ball because he doesn't want to throw the ball to any of them. He was on the sideline. This is the very first time this season that I have seen Aaron Rodgers on the sideline, smiling, giggling, having fun, interacting instead of yelling at his wide receivers. So maybe there's a little bit of a connection there, but they do still have playmakers. Detroit is allowing the highest rate in the league, allowing opponents to score on drives, allowing the highest rate of red zone plays to be a touchdown, allowing the highest rate of third down conversions to be converted, the highest depth of target downfield per completion. If there was, you're mentioning how everyone's saying this is a get right spot for Brady and the Bucs. That's against a really good defense. This is potentially a get right spot for Aaron Rodgers and the offense because it's the worst defense.
It is the worst defense.
Like the literal worst defense. You can't get worse than the Lions.
So I kind of get hung up sometimes on these things, and I've got to remind myself it's okay to break certain rules, if you will. I don't like betting road chalk. Obviously, on the show there's exceptions to every rule, and usually I like the divisional dogs. I think the Lions peaked a little too early this year, right? I do think what Dan Campbell is doing, I think he's got the culture coming right. Offensively, they look so much better. Well, with the exception of playing the Dallas defense last week, of course. But I do like the Packers here. My only concern is this is their 4th road game in 5 weeks, if you count London as a road game. Right. So I do have.
You definitely do, yeah.
Yes, right. I mean, you do, even though it's a neutral site, I still count it as a road game, and not saying it's a hostile environment, but you still have to travel across Atlantic Ocean. And that's my only concern. The NFC North is the division I follow most because I used to do radio back in the day, and I kind of fell in love with the rivalries and the love and the hate, and they're like such fun games to go to. Working for Wager Talk, going to Detroit, dating a guy that's a Packers fan, kind of all came to fruition there for me. But I can tell you this, the Packers don't cover in Detroit, and that concerns me. At least they haven't for the past 5 seasons. That is my 2 caveats. Otherwise,
has it also been bigger spreads than 3?
Yeah, usually it's a touchdown or more, Pam, and that's it's kind of like
still not maybe we are still too low on the Packers because of their early season struggles.
Listen, I like this Packers defense. This Packers defense has come up big for me. They came up big, 2 interceptions from Josh Allen. They should surely be able to get Jared Goff out of the mix here. The Lions
Green Bay is allowing the 2nd lowest rate of third down conversions.
Okay.
And I know the Lions looked pretty good last week. They were up 14-0 to Miami. Well, Miami is also one of the worst defenses. and Green Bay is a huge step up, at least defensively.
Yeah,
An option.
I do have the Packers written down as well. But those are just the very minimal notes that I had, and said, I've told you guys this before on the show. I'm trying to really have a disciplined NFL season. Yes, I had a crappy Saturday last week, but those are far and few between. But I can't tell you how many crappy Sundays I've had historically. And you have a great Saturday and you give it all back on Sunday. That's why I like doing these contests. That's why I like jumping in and pick fives and mixed bag of NFL and college football, because you can still get your NFL fix, if you will, as a gambler. But I really three NFL games is the most I played all year. So that's kind of why I said, I don't need to get involved in some of these other games. But I do lean the Packers as well. I mean, you and I are pretty much in lockstep with everything this week.
Well, let's leave it as an option then. So another option could be Washington +3 at the Vikings. You have quarterback Taylor Heineke. He can scramble, and I love a scrambling quarterback. He had 29 rushing yards last week against the Colts. It really helped for them to pull out the win. He can throw. He had 67% completion in his 2 games. In his 2 games, he's averaging 7.5 average. He can handle the pressure because last week's game, when it mattered the most, 9 plays, 89 yards, 2:20 left in the fourth quarter, marks his way downfield, dinks and dunks, figures it out, rushing touchdown for the big time win. The Vikings defense is still last in the league for red zone touchdowns. This Vikings defense, I'm waiting for them to fall off. I am not. They're getting lucky. To me, Vikings is no different than TCU. You're getting lucky.
I love that.
So
love that.
I don't know if Washington is the team to pick them off, but
I mean, listen, you kind of have to wonder. The Commanders' fourth comebacks have been really entertaining. I will say that maybe their luck's going to run out here against this Vikings defense. I lean towards the Commanders here. A really sharp friend of mine literally texted me this morning. We're on the group and I'm like, everybody send me your NFL best bets. I'm curious to see like kind of where everybody else is at. And he said, I love the Washington Commanders +3.5. I said, okay, I'll take a little bit more of a look at it. Obviously hadn't really gotten much of an opportunity to. I had them written down on my long list and basically said, at the current number of 3, I'm going to pass. It is 3.5 in the contest, correct?
It's 3. On
it
one
is
contest, it's 3.5. In ours, it's 3.
Of course it is. Listen, Washington's rushing defense is kind of their Achilles heel here. I think Dalvin Cook could have a big game. Lean towards Commanders.
Minnesota is also the 3rd worst passing defense, though.
Ooh. Yeah. I definitely, I'm okay with adding commies. I'm down. We got to find 2 more. And we're running out of options because.
Well, okay, another option. We're talking about chalk. There is no bigger chalk than taking the Chiefs -12.5.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. The only other one left on my list, Chiefs off a bye, Andy Reid off a bye. That's all I hear.
So for me, it's like you have Patrick Mahomes, who leads the league in passing touchdowns. Mahomes is top 5 in the league for passing yards per pass attempt, averages over 300 yards per passing game. Oh, and by the way, last week he verbatim said that he has now a great connection with his wide receivers because they played Call of Duty for hours. And apparently that's a good male bonding experience, I guess. But the Chiefs offense is in sync right now. And we saw it just last week when they put up 44 points against the 49ers, a much better defense on the road. Tennessee's passing defense, 24th in opponent yards per pass attempt, 8th worst on the road in opponent yards per completion. This secondary against Patrick Mahomes. We saw it earlier in the season, and I don't know how much more improved they are now, but the Titans on the road against the Bills, they lost 41-7. The Bills quarterback, Josh Allen, he had over 300 yards in that game, 8.3 average, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The Titans allowed over 350 yards to Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz. Allowed both of those 350, 9.5 average between the two, 4 passing scores, and now you get Mahomes. How does Mahomes not put up at least 40 burger on him just like Josh Allen did?
I want to like the Chiefs. My only hang up with the Chiefs are I have bet the Titans basically, I think is the last 3 seasons. Currently, Vrabel 4-1 straight up against Kansas City since 2018. And can Kansas City stop the run? It doesn't sound like it's going to be Tannehill on Sunday. I hadn't heard definitively yet, but it doesn't matter. The Titans, if they want to win this game, they're going to have to run the ball. I mean, Kansas City can't stop a nosebleed, at least not recently. They haven't been able to. That's my two caveats, because I'm with you. I'm all in on Andy Reid after a bye. He's been very successful, not only straight up, but against the spread. And that's why everybody's talking about it this week, because it has been good. Could that 22 games
Is that even
sample
true
size?
though, that they can't stop the run? I mean, the Chiefs against the Niners, they only allowed 100 rushing yards, 4.8 yards per carry.
It's not that they can't stop the run. I just haven't seen them really put a hurt on running backs. And maybe it's just fresh in my memory that Derrick Henry is just an absolute monster in the backfield still. That's my only concern when you're laying double digits with the team. That back door is always open, as we saw several times this year. But normally double digits in the NFL have historically been pretty good. I would have to check the more recent data behind it, but I lean towards the Chiefs as well. They were also on my list.
Well, then only one other team.
Okay.
Let's go run through our list. Cardinals -2 at the Seahawks. Everybody loves the Seahawks, and I'm not fading them because of that. I'm fading them because the injuries are starting to pile up for Seattle. You have on the injury list Marquise Goodwin, tight end Noah Fant. On defense, your strong safety Ryan Neal, limited earlier in the week. He's potentially not going to play. Now you have Kyler Murray against DeAndre Hopkins. They've already faced a couple weeks ago. You have to look at that thing and remember that matchup, and look at they didn't have DeAndre Hopkins in that matchup. That's like huge number change, number one. The Cardinals defense is allowing the fourth highest rate of plays to reach the red zone. That's actually a good thing, because Seattle is 30th in the league for red zone touchdowns. They can't score inside the red zone. That's where they are inept. And the Seahawks defense is looking much improved in the last few weeks. But statistically, it shows that in weeks 1 through 5, they allowed 52% scoring. But after that, they've only allowed 21%. But who have you faced? You faced the Giants, an injured quarterback in Justin Herbert, and the Cardinals without DeAndre Hopkins.
I like the Cardinals. They were on my list.
How are we literally in agreement with every single thing?
Literally, my list goes Bears, Cards, Saints, Colts. I crossed off the Falcons. I crossed off the Panthers. I crossed off the Rams. And I wrote Casey off a bye, question mark, question mark, question mark. And then I had the Packers, question mark, fourth road game in 5 weeks. I swear we have literally the same list. So one of the interesting things is I always talk about how I don't like to listen to the talking heads, but I'm not in my office and I'm getting a little work done. I turned the TV on. It's on NFL, whatever channel this is. And what's the first thing I hear? Geno Smith. Nobody's talking about Geno Smith. We got to get Geno Smith in the conversation. And I'm like, okay, everybody pump the brakes. Geno's doing a lot. Tyler Lockett even casually mentioned in the press conference, it's amazing what you can accomplish when nobody needs to take credit for a win or loss. I loved that quote, but obviously I'm a Tyler fan. I do think that this Cardinals team is in a very buy low situation. And that's why I like them. Full disclosure, I did tease the Saints with the Seahawks. I have the Seahawks +8. So I wouldn't be opposed to having a 6-point middle here. I do think that Cardinals are going to have to be able to try to run the ball, because Kyler Murray, as little as he is and as quick as he is, like a freaking video game back there, rushing for like 60 yards on one play, if they, follow him around, he's getting a ton of pressure put on him. And they've got to be able to make this offense more than one dimensional. That's kind of been the issue with them, at least from my opinion. If they can get a win here, though, I think they're right back in the divisional race mix. And I lean the Cardinals here. I'm with you. I will say this.
They don't have their running back, James Conner. He didn't play last week. He's not playing this week.
Okay.
So you have Benjamin, who, I think is fine. I don't really know. I think it's more Kyler Murray. He is the runner for this team right now.
He really is. And like you said, in regards to either
Aaron James Conner may be playing. He was limited on Thursday.
Okay, I hadn't seen a recent update on that. You know what I need to do? I need to get better for our listeners and do that before the show, not wait till Friday night to kind of double check. But it is because you want to see, right now guys are at practice or they're about to start practice, depending on where in the United States their team is located. Oh. And so it is nice about that 5-6 p.m. mark to get those updates.
Mm-hmm.
But he is practicing today, or you don't have anything definitive?
I just look at ESPN and it says limited on Thursday.
Okay. All right. I haven't heard any other updates. At least nothing's come across my screen. I love it because it will give you a literal alert so that I can kind of keep up to date with stuff. So what do we have here? We've got cards, commies.
The ones that are locked in are the Bears and the Saints. Those are our best bets. The third one that we're putting in is the Colts. And options would be the Jags plus 1.5 at home to the Raiders, the Rams plus 3 at the Bucks, the Packers minus 3.5 at the Lions, Washington plus 3 at the Vikings, Cardinals minus 2 to the Seahawks, and Chiefs minus 12.5 at home to the Titans.
I think we put in the cards because you and I both agree there. And we both agree on the Packers, and we both agree on the Chiefs, and we agree on the commies. So I vote we cut out the Jags because I don't have a big opinion there.
Okay.
And I vote, and the Rams is 3 in the contest?
Yes.
This is where I wish we did a live show, and I'd just make the guys in the comments pick. Or we would ask them their opinion and fade them like I do on Twitter. I know, I'm terrible.
I mean, we are literally now we're actually having problems because we agree on too much.
I know.
That's never happened. Here we are in week 9, and we're not opposite.
This is definitely the most we've agreed on in ever. Like ever.
Now we don't know what to do. We're literally here like, okay, now what? What do we do?
This has never happened. This has never happened. Okay.
Coco, put 2 balls on the floor and say pick one.
Coco's at grandma's. I'll have to borrow Chris's dog Blue. She's actually really funny. She keeps bringing me toys. I'm like, can you stop? I'm trying to do a show. I should have shut the door. Yeah. I think okay, if you had to pick your favorite, how about this? You pick one of your favorites from those 5, and I'll pick one of my favorites from those 5.
Okay, how about then? Okay, great. Hold on. Let me look through the options. I think I'm gonna go with Packers over the Lions.
Okay.
The hook I think is scary because so in one contest it's 3, but in this contest it's 3.5. But if I am predicting that Aaron Rodgers is gonna put up 34 points, I'm asking Lions, like Packers should have no reason putting up 30 points. I know that their offense looks like inept, but this is the worst defense. And if you can't do that against the Lions, then
get yourself back in the divisional mix here. I mean, I literally just tweeted out when we were talking about the Vikings and how I have the NFC North and stuff. What could possibly go wrong? You know what could go wrong? The Packers could go on an absolute another tear. That's what could go wrong. All right, so you're going with the Packers. I like that one. I'm going with the Cards. I'll take the home team -2.
Oh, okay. So that was already okay. So okay, great. Oh, card 5. We have 5. So then we have the Bears plus 5 at the Dolphins. That's Kelly's best bet. We have the Saints plus 2.5 at home to the Ravens. We have the Colts plus 5.5 at the Patriots. And then I guess like an option that I went with because we agree on everything is Packers minus 3.5 at the Lions. And then Kelly's, which we all agree anyway, it's Cardinals minus 2 to the Seahawks. We agree on everything.
I love it. Well, you know what I thought too is we did such a good mix last week of dogs and favorites that works out really great. We're not laying some crazy number that we could get backdoored on. We're taking one road favorite in a divisional game against a terrible defense, and we're taking a short home favorite in a divisional game seeking revenge against the Seahawks. And everybody's ready to give Geno Smith the MVP trophy.
Hey, and if they do, like, power to them. And I do like the Seahawks. I'm on board with everybody else. I like what Geno Smith is doing. I like what Pete Carroll is doing. I love that he's saying, you know what? I'm old and whatever. Bullshit. Thank you. Like, he is acknowledging all of the hatred that was coming his way preseason, and he's shutting up the naysayers. I can appreciate that about him and this team. But this is still a divisional game. When you first played, there was no DeAndre Hopkins. They're in a super, super, like, you must win situation. And I never use that as a handicap. And I'm not saying that I'm using that now, but I'm just looking at injuries. And eventually, something's got to, like, change. The Cardinals have got to improve how they're supposed to. And the Seahawks could maybe see some regression. I mean, you can't just continue on. I don't know.
I like I said, this is a total buy low spot for me on the Cardinals. I'm with you.
And a buy low spot for me on the Packers because you're still putting
Yes.
3 against the worst defense.
You're
when
right.
You just played against the best defense.
We're friends with some of the guys that own some of those databases, and I love to log in and look at them and see historically what the spreads were. I'm going to do that after the show because you're right. This is one of the lowest spreads I've seen for Packers Lions in probably. There you go.
What do you
Love
think?
it.
Okay, let's put a prediction on what the Green Bay was preseason against the Lions.
I'm going to say -6.5 at Detroit.
6.
Yep.
6 at Detroit. Now you're getting 3.5. Great. How about the Cardinals to the Seahawks?
Oh God. I bet that was even higher. I bet that was just because everybody was so low on the Seahawks. No, you know what? I'll say the same. I'll say 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
Boom. I like it.
Sometimes I'm good at this guessing game.
Buy low spots. So then great. Just to reiterate, because I know we talked a lot afterward. Hour 5 against the spread. Bears +5 at the Dolphins. Saints +2.5 at home to the Ravens. Colts +5.5 at the Patriots. Packers -3.5 at the Lions, and Cardinals -2 against the Seahawks. Those are our 5. Do make sure to follow Kelly at KellyInVegas on Twitter. You can follow me at Twitter at PamelaM35. Like, subscribe, give us all the love and the good vibes. So hopefully we can go another 5-0. This time I'm gonna go back to parlaying. No, you said don't do that because
you're not allowed to. I was gonna say, wait, listen, you can do whatever you want, but if you ever want to go 5-0 again, you got to stop doing that.
Parlay. You guys can parlay. I'm gonna be backing off. I trust our 5. I like
How about this? How about you round robin them? There you go.
Hell yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and do that too. We'll figure it out. We got a good week. I like our cards. This is the very first time, literally in the history of you and I being a team in 2 seasons, that we have agreed on absolutely everything. We'll see how
I was laughing when you said that, okay, like, what's your best bet here? And you didn't say anything else. And then we just kept going through. I'm like, yeah, I had them on my list. Yeah, I had them on my list. So hopefully that's a good thing. Hopefully that's a really good thing. And, sometimes it's nice to agree.
At the beginning of the season, we're saying it's been good that we're in disagreement. And now here we are in the middle of the season, we're saying it's good that we are in agreement. You know what? We'll see what happens.
If it's working, the agreement worked last week. It's working this week. Let's just see if maybe we can't go on a little hot streak for one of these quarterly prizes.
Fingers crossed. Make sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Helen, my girl. Good luck this weekend, and good luck.
Go Cats! You're like, I'm cutting that out.